Hello, everyone. This week I wanted to talk about tourism. The tourism sector is hugely important to Ireland. It's one of the few sectors that transcends itself into every and can be in every location, every county, every town, every village in the country because we have a huge wealth of offering as a nation. I suppose as a country that had a lot of emigration over the years, it has come home to roost in a lot of ways, thankfully, in that, millions and millions of people around the world claim Irish heritage, tens of millions. And therefore, they want to come back. They want to see where their ancestors came from. They want to learn about the culture. And in a lot of areas, we've always punched above our weight internationally, whether it is in singing, whether it's in sport, whether it's in culture, whether it's politically in terms of international leaders, in terms of poetry and plays and all of that, we have punched very, very highly. So therefore, people have a genuine interest with the connection, or just as a nation, we have, we've developed very close relationships with powerful allies like the US and the UK. So therefore, there's a real interest in Ireland, and we can benefit, and we have benefited from that. This week also saw the Fáilte Ireland Thrive to Survive event in online, and thousands of people, businesses from around the country tuned in on Monday to hear Fáilte Ireland report on the year that was in terms of 2020 and all of those difficulties and challenges that the industry faced, and also hear the plans for the future. And there was a €55 million fund announced that will be launched on the 11th of February, particularly targeting at businesses, outdoor businesses like tour businesses and kayaking and surfing and attractions and things like that. So that's hugely positive, as well as all of the other supports that had already been put in place by Fáilte Ireland to support the various businesses during COVID. And I suppose tourism is so vitally important, and it was already, as an industry, it was already preparing and very nervous about what the prospect of Brexit was going to bring, because obviously Britain is hugely important to our tourism business, from the point of view of people coming home to spend money, people with family and friends, and also genuine, tourists coming to see the country. And also then, the industry had sought the retention of the 9% VAT rate for the sector, and that hadn't been successful in the previous budget. So it was already facing a lot of challenges. We had seen a slight decline in tourism revenue in 2019 from 2018. So that concern was there. And then COVID hit, and we saw what happened there in terms of the lack of international travel, which had to be done, and also then the lockdowns and people staying at home and staying within their counties and things like that. So and then we had that short burst in July and August, and that benefited mainly the Wild Atlantic Way and the Midlands. But not so much the capital city or some of the other cities maybe. And that kind of tells its own story in terms of the heavy reliance of Dublin and maybe the cities on international travel. And maybe this offers, and they suffered because of that. But similarly, the country generally doesn't receive the same level of funding, so our level of visitors. So obviously the drop off was so immense for those businesses who have built up their business plans and their whole strategy and their whole reason for being on international travel, and that's hugely important. But it gives us an opportunity to reflect on that and how we spread the international traveller possibly around the country, also how we introduce more domestic tourism into the cities. So there's a way for us all to balance out and to benefit from that, you know. So that has raised its own questions. And so obviously it was staycations is what happened in 2020. And that's what we're looking at for 2021. So the event on Monday was very positive, outlined the current funding that's there very succinctly, and also the new funding that is coming on stream, and encouraging businesses to engage and use the resources and use the learning hub that's there, and use any of the funding streams or any of the supports that are there to help them through, and their staff, and the continuity of business is what's vitally important. That's the key message, because obviously there is, and the event on Monday did show this, there is a lot of positivity and a lot of hope for 2022 and 2023, and that the industry will recover, and that there will be international travel, and the majority of the world will be done in terms of vaccines, and people will be able to come back. Obviously, the message also was that you can't be complacent, because every country in the world will be looking to attract people back, and people will want to travel and visit. But we're in that mix, and we're high up there. And it's very important that, I suppose, we get our message out there to make sure that people want to travel to Ireland, and that we see it as attractive. And I suppose even just looking forward to 2020 in terms of the industry, the lesson from 2021 with the staycations is the impact of tourism, because international visitors brought in approximately 9 billion in 2019 into the Irish economy. Huge figures. Now, the spread of that, is something to be looked at in terms of where it goes, in terms of the cities, in terms of particular areas, in particular focus on key locations. But also then the Irish spend approximately 8 billion going abroad each year. So obviously in 2020 that was reversed in terms of, they were no longer spending it abroad, and it was spent at home, and the majority of it was spent, a good portion of it was spent here, obviously. And that people were able to spend it, because from the research the Fáilte Ireland did, 70 something percenters, in around 70% of people had said that they would take a holiday in 2020, but when they were researched afterwards, only 29% actually did. So that kind of means that people were unsure about their own circumstances. Yes, they wanted to go on holiday, but their circumstance didn't allow, whether it was they were so uncertain about their job, where they didn't have enough money saved, whether they couldn't book a place because it was so busy for July and August, and it was such a short period of time that people were able to go on holidays in Ireland. All those factors probably played a part. Whether people were off sick or, things like that. So it's interesting for 2020, the demand is going to be higher. And from talking to people in tourist locations around the country, the prospects are good. The bookings are strong in terms of people looking to come to key locations for the summer to spend their holidays, and not just their holidays, not just a week or 2 weeks. There's many of them looking to relocate once the kids are finished school, or once I suppose the weather improves, and you can be outdoors more, and you can be in a holiday home setting more. But there is a real move for people to actually come and stay for a number of months, which would be huge for local economies in terms of those locations. But also puts huge pressure on accommodation and locations. So we can view this in a couple of ways, in that it could obviously send the price up of a lot of places, particularly accommodation, which is something that we have to be very careful of, because we want to make sure, and from the research the Fáilte Ireland did, people, a very high percentage of around 80 or 90% of people were hugely happy with their holiday and were delighted. I think it was 85% were delighted with their holiday in Ireland, their staycation. So we have to ensure that we retain that. So, there can't be any price gouging. There can't be any, and that is difficult to, you can't moderate it, and you can't control it. But it is something we very need as tourism businesses need to be very conscious of. And it is difficult when the season is so short and you don't get your return on your investment, because these businesses in accommodation have invested hugely. But we have to be very careful. We have to ensure that we treat our customers and make sure that the visitors have a very good time and get value for money, so that they might think twice about. I know people say, look, 2023, everybody be gone abroad. 22 and 23, everybody be booking to go abroad because they'll have had Ireland in 2020 and 21. But at the same time, if you give them good value, give them a great experience, they might consider at least 2 holidays if they manage that they will spend, have a staycation as well as a foreign holiday in 22 and 23. However, our case for 21 now is that we are staycations. The chances of people travelling abroad or of people travelling here is not likely. So therefore, because people won't be, the majority of the country won't be vaccinated by the end of the summer, until the end of the summer. So people have realised that, and that's why they've started to book. So the pricing is something that we really have to be careful of, and we have to be conscious of, and it is a fine balance. Also then, it is also though an opportunity, because if the usual places, the usual suspects in terms of the locations of people to holiday in Ireland are fully booked and are under pressure price-wise, well then it's an opportunity to market and to promote those locations around the country that people don't traditionally go to. Because I believe very strongly that every corner, every county, town, village, townland, parish in the country, in Ireland, has such a huge wealth of offering. We are such a diverse country in terms of landscape, in terms of people, in terms of culture, in terms of locations, and that's part of the importance of tourism, because it reinforces our culture, because it's not just about people coming to stay and holiday and relax and have a good time and eat and drink. It's also about immersing themselves in our culture and our heritage. So it's a great way to keep those alive, not just for ourselves, but not just for the tourists, but also for ourselves, that we can reinforce what we have or where we came from, or the history and what we've come through as a country, and our geography and our landscape and our culture and our heritage. It's a way to retain that and maintain that by having it on show and being very proud of it and wanting to tell visitors our story and where we came from and what we're about, and also for them to experience that culture in a very authentic way, and not just put on for them, but a very authentic cultural experience. So if we retain and focus on what we have or what we're about as a country and as a nation, well then that'll shine through in how we give that experience back to the visitor. And that can be true just as much for, because we're so diverse as a country, as people, that from around the country getting to experience things in other counties that they'd never heard of or never experienced before. And, it is very important that we very much know our own country before we above anything else. So, it'd be great to see, or to give people that challenge to have visited, 6 new counties this year, whether it's through traveling just through them or taking a couple of short breaks or experience them in that way, or 6 new tourist attractions that they'd never been to before, or whatever number, some sort of a challenge. Maybe that's something that we could look at from that Fáilte Ireland could look at, some sort of challenge, and get people to share it on social media and tag Fáilte Ireland, even 5 or 4, whatever, that there will be a certain amount of new challenges for people to see how many new places they can go to during their staycation in Ireland. And actually something that was suggested to me was that now that we're currently in lockdown and we're within our 5 kilometers, and we're preparing, like everyone, we're preparing for our staycation, hopefully in the summer, that we'll have enough of a vaccine rolled out and enough people immunised that it'll be safe for people to travel around the country, that now is the time that we need to get promoting those places. And I'm particularly talking about the places that aren't as well known as others. They're not the usual suspects in terms of where to go on your summer holidays. Because as I said, every town, a village, townland, every corner of our beautiful, wonderful country, our gorgeous, spectacular landscape and the variety of people and accents that we have around the country has something to offer, any corner of the whole country. So therefore, now is the time to promote it. And what was suggested to me was that within our 5 kilometers now, the people start tagging and sharing and promoting their best feature within their 5 kilometers, the thing they think is the best attraction or amenity or service or hotel or, guest house or accommodation or whatever. Or it could be a walk, it could be a hill, it could be a seascape, it could be anything within their 5 kilometers. So now is the time maybe to start promoting that, so that your friends and your followers from around the country could see that and think, oh, I never knew that it was even there. God, that's a beautiful picture of that. That's where I'll go when we can staycation in the summertime. So it's a way to start promoting and give us something to do in this time. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to put up a post of, my recommended staycation within my 5 kilometers that it is now for people to come to. We're fortunate in Clare to have so many of them that people can put up. It's a country road. It's a beautiful scene. As I said, it could be anything. It could be a pub. It could be a restaurant. It could be anything. I challenge everyone in the country that there isn't some sort of an attraction within their 5K that they believe people would like to see or like to experience once we get out of lockdown and we can have our staycation. So I think that's the challenge for us for this week.